I have the honor to welcome Mr. Anand Pillai, Senior Executive Vice President and Chief Learning Officer, Reliance Industries Limited, and Mr. Ilango R., Chief Human Resource Officer, Emphasis. Can we have both the gentlemen on stage? I would invite Mr. Pillai to deliver the first keynote, sir. Thank you.
Am I on? Yeah. We're living in a very interesting time, both professionally as well as personally. I'll tell you something about my own family. My son studies in OT, and as parents, we want to be in regular touch with him. The problem with him is, or people of that generation, is the way you connect with them is completely different. I call him on the house phone or the dorm phone, he's not available at all. I send him an email, he does not respond at all. I post something on Facebook and I get a reply. This is a different generation altogether. Now I tell him, listen, what I post on Facebook is between you and me, and you put that on a reply all. He says, Dad, welcome to the transparent generation. It's a different world that we are living in. So what I want to do is, I want to structure my presentation into basically three components. The fourth one I'm not going to be talking about. I know that I'm preaching to the choir, but I still want to give some details on, I've cut a lot of the slides, some details on the social network adoption, its usage, how we can leverage this with brands. There are a lot of us who can market our entire product and leverage it on our brands, and of course the role of employees in making companies more human. Quite interestingly, in the morning I was giving another keynote address in the NHRD session, and in the question answer one of them asked, how can we make HR more adaptable to organizations? So I said, simple, bring the H back in HR, because in any organization, the most hated department is the HR department. And the reason for that is the policies and rules and, whatever. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn can bring that human interface back, and of course, let us see how we can take that forward. So if you look at this is an approximation, out of the 2 billion people in the world, there are over 1 billion Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Orkut, so on and so forth, users. So half of the world's population is on the social network. Can you imagine the kind of market potential that is there in this kind of a setup? And if you look at it, over 600 million people, out of this 1 billion people, over 600 of them, 60% of them log into their network at least once. Untapped potential, completely untapped potential. Look at the next one. If you look at the various social networks, we had this MySpace, we had Orkut, and a whole lot of them. But if you now see, there are 3 that are emerging to be the big players, and of course I've introduced one which is relevant largely in Europe. But if you see, it is Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook. So I want to ask by a show of hands, how many of you are not in any one of these 3? Oh, any one of these 3, Twitter, LinkedIn or Facebook? Twitter, you're not on Twitter, okay. But any one of these 3, you're in the other, right? So you're at least there. I mean, this is fortunately, the world has moved on. I was chairing a session in NASSCOM in the HRD summit. This was 2 years ago. My co-speaker was not in any one of them. So I said, what's wrong? No, I know about Facebook. My son is on Facebook. And I said, listen, your son is not the speaker here. It is you. So many of us, we are having this theoretical view of it, but this is a very interesting slide. I don't want to spend too much time on it. If you look at the future usage versus the network penetration, so if you look at on the x-axis, the penetration, and if you look at the usage, you find that these 3 or these 2 are very heavily there. And if you look at the penetration, in terms of penetration, Facebook is way ahead of the rest. And I don't know how many of you are on the bloggers. So this is basically a statistics for you to know where we are and what is the kind of world that we are living in. We are living in a world where 50% of them are digitally accessible. They have a digital, presence. And that's something that has not happened hitherto. And I know that Thomas Friedman and others who talked about the world is flat wrote about whatever they wrote about much before the digital era, much before Facebook came. And now we are seeing the world is really equalized because of these things. Now if you look at the next one, which is basically the impact of social networks on people and brands, again, those of you who are interested, send me your email or Twitter. I can send you the full presentation. I'm going to give you only the limited one here. So if you look at the impact, people connecting with others to getting to know about social or getting to know about brands, they do it far more on the social network than they do it on one-to-one, because that's more easier. Now that is both the good experience as well as bad experience. In fact, if I were to quote Jeff Bezos of Yahoo, he said, in the earlier world, if you have an unsatisfied customer, by the end of the day, 6 to 7 people would have come to know about his or her unsatisfaction. But in today's digital world, if you have an unsatisfied customer, how many people will know? The potential is 1 billion. The potential is 1 billion, but of course it will not be that much, but it is several million. It is several million, because what happens is, you retweet, you repost, and it just goes on. So there is a big impact that is there. And if you look at the social media and brands, following brands on social media is driven by actual user experience. And if you look at it, about 46% of them are actually dependent on or talking about what their experience was on their brand. And about 29% of them are actually buying a product because that particular product was recommended by somebody. And very close to that, 28% of them have been invited by another network contact. I don't know how many marketeers are here and leveraging this particular potential. It's mind-boggling, and it is almost free. All that you will have to do is get some people advertising on the social media again. 26% online advertising is about 22%. So this is a real untapped potential. The impact of the social media on branding. And if you look at the next one, about 42% of the people had a conversation on a brand via the social network. Go further, and if you see, customers actually want to be involved. They want to be involved in the boardroom to improve the relationship. And look at some of the statistics that is there. The 44% of them, they said, we want to be co-owners in the creation of the brand. Look at another 44% of them, they said, listen, we want to be having a conversation around what this brand is all about. 33% of them, they said, we want to become brand ambassadors. We want to become fans. And about direct interaction, about 43% of them, they said, listen, this is where we want to actually contribute. Big potential. These are not single digit numbers. They are very big. And if you go on to the next one, people like to connect. And if you look at checking the status of others, about 5.2 on a scale of 1 to 10, chatting, again 4.7. So there is a big usage that is going on, and many of us as marketers, I know Philip Kotler will actually get into another P. I don't know what that P will be. Maybe presence on the internet. How you market yourself in this digital age is a completely different paradigm. It's a paradigm shift that is there that we need to exploit ourselves into. And of course, if you talk about feedback, there is a marked difference between people who are on the social network and people who are not on the social network. And in fact, the next one, it is a logistics nightmare for you to get feedback on the usage of your product from all the people. And only 52% of them with the extensive direct marketing campaign could participate on that. However, if all that you did was create a fan page and ask people their experience about that particular product, it is almost instantaneous, and about 61% of them can respond. And this is a big data that we can work on to use in our product development, we use in our customer satisfaction surveys. So let's get into the third one very specifically, how employees can make a difference by leverage, or companies can make a difference by leveraging the social media. If you look at it, 61% of the employed social networks are proud to be working for the company that they are working for. You know, in my earlier company, in the induction, we talked about the regular, not me, the person was ahead of me, talked about the HR policies. In our company, social media, well, you know, you're not allowed to have Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on and so forth. 22% of the employees walked away. They said, listen, if this is the company that I'm going to work for, where I'm not going to have access to LinkedIn, social, Twitter or Facebook, this is not the company that I should be working for. Of course, IT department has got their own reasons why they do not want to do that, because of bandwidth choking, because of the unethical posting, and because the company becoming liable. I mean, there are all these things that are there. But look at this percentage. 61% of the employed, they are proud of the company that they are working for. In any online recruiting, we have this reference bonus. If all that we can do is take advantage of these people, they are proud. I mean, they can be far effective evangelists in getting others to be into their own company. And about 19% of them talk about their company on the social media, and this is because they are not allowed to have the access. How many people want to talk about something and then wait till they get access at the end of the day to talk about it? When you get a particular thought, you want to tweet. When you get a particular thought, you want to post on it. If you look at the 61% of the people are very proud, but only 19% of them are in a position to talk about it because of the restriction that is there, and 33% cannot even access this websites at the work. So if you see some of the others, they probably have access through their mobile network or through the mobile phones. So if we look at again the company policy that we have, 60% of them would like to get help from their employer to share relevant content, and about 25% of them have got a written policy on the social network usage, but of course not many of them have got even training. How many organizations are leveraging this potential? I just want to throw these data points here as Ilongo comes, and we'll just go to the last 4 out of the 10 people are actually talking about or expressing their attitude there. These are some of the data points that is there, but I want to leave these thoughts with you to see how we are not at all exploiting it from a brand point of view, not at all exploiting it from a marketing point of view, from an employee engagement point of view, from a talent acquisition, talent retention, and there is another entire piece that I have on social learning. How you can use your social media to enhance collaborative learning in an organization. The possibilities are endless. We'll wait for Ilongo to come on, and then afterwards the two of us will chat.
Thank you, Anand. No presentation, and I'm going to take my jacket off because it's really getting warm. Good afternoon. I'm really happy to be here. When I said to somebody I'm going to speak on social media and digital universe, they said, Ilongo, what the hell, you weren't on Facebook till a year ago. What are you going to talk about social media and digital universe? And, and then I said, so they said, who's your co-speaker? I said, oh, Anand Pillai. So somebody did something. He says, he's got 1,200 followers and you only have 300 followers and you're going to speak with him. It's almost like two boys, comparing their sizes to see who's bigger. That's how this whole social media stuff has become. I want to take a step back. You ask anybody, this whole social media thing is like a debris that's flown out of a tsunami, hit us smack in our face, and is disrupting our businesses, disrupting our personal lives, disrupting our conversations. You talk to anybody, if I were to ask you folks here, saying, what do you think of social media? There will be varying answers. One will be, oh, that's the apocalypse of privacy. Moral standards are going away. Oh, young people are spending all time on social media. There's so much of grandstanding. And yesterday we heard, Shekhar Kapoor in his cerebral best exhort to us on how madness and all that's got to be there. And he spoke about this is the resurgence of the community. And the guy next to me says, no, it's not resurgence of community, it's resurgence of the individual. all that is rhetoric. I'm going to now step back and talk to you not about social media, but talk about some fundamentals that lead to social media. For that, I have to, how many of you have watched War Horse, the Steven Spielberg movie? Terrific. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Terrific. That's a great start. Oh, fine. That's 5 out of, looks like we were around 120 people. So I know, so if I say something wrong, you're not going to counter me on it. But you will not, but you can tweet on my this thing saying Elango's lying. See, you know, there is this scene where this young man in a motorbike draws up at the village square. And then he gets off the bike and he says, "Here everybody, England's going to war with Germany. The church bells will stop tolling and will only ring when the war's ended." Did I get it right? Yeah? So that's the scene. Now cut it. So who was I watching the movie with? I was watching the movie with my son, Agastya. So he suddenly nudges me and he says, "Appa, why is he doing that?" So he said, "What do you mean, why is he doing that? England's going to war, so he has to go tell people so he can get somebody to recruit." So he looks at me and says, "Appa, the king doesn't have email or what? He can't send email to everybody? Can't he put it on Facebook? So on his Facebook profile so people can talk about it?" So I say, "Agastya, keep quiet now, let's just watch the movie." But step back. That is what the whole social media thing is about. It is about getting our message out. It is about, sending that email, putting that Facebook, tweeting to somebody, sitting back, and I said, is that what we do? Is that what we do? Is that what Agastya is saying by saying, why couldn't you send that email out? Step back. Let me give you another example. I think I have it here. Can you guys see this? What is this? What is this? A postcard. What is a modern day postcard? Come on. I will give you guys a limited copy, signed book of mine if you get this. Yes, sir. No, come on, guys. What do you do with a card? You write address and you post it saying, "I was here." Foursquare! You check in and say, "This is where I am." And I think, with multiple, this thing, so you walk in, we were at the Louvre, 6 or 7 months ago, my wife and I, and it's quite intimidating, right? You don't know what to see, so I checked in on Foursquare and said, "At the Louvre." It was more to say, I am at the Louvre. Suddenly a friend, puts a Facebook, this thing saying, "What are you doing in Louvre? I'm just a few blocks away. What can we do? Can we catch up for lunch?" That is the postcard. Only difference, what is the difference between the postcard and Foursquare? The time, the reach, and this postcard only went to your family. The Foursquare went to just somebody who was on the network you probably added some time ago. That's the fundamental difference, or that's what we think. Take a step back. There's another big difference with social media. What is that? Go back to the story of War Horse. Who was sending the message out? Who had the necessity to send the message out that England's at war with Germany? Come on, the book offer is still there. Sorry? The town crier was the messenger, but who was sending the message out? The king. Who said that? The young man in the t-shirt. Sorry, I heard him first. I can't give more than one book out. Okay, 2. So we got the 2 of you guys. Meet my friend Suraksha here in that pink shirt. I'm colorblind, looks like pink, but she will take your dresses. So it is the king that is sending the message. Who had the resources at that time to send the message? It was the king, the prime minister. A few years ago, who else had the resource to send it? It's the CEO, it's a big corporate. Now, who has the access to send the message? You and me. That's the damn difference with social media. But a lot of us forget that this whole social media stuff is about us, and it's about the messaging that we get out there and what we do with this. We still focus on, can we put our brands out there? Can we do branding? Can I follow Shakira on Twitter. It's less about them. It's terrific for me to hear that Shah Rukh Khan missed his flight to Berlin. But it's so terrible to hear that the next day he had a private jet that took him. For me, I would have had to wait for another week because I'll never get that plane. But what is terrific for me to hear is have this debate with a colleague today on whether HR is a specialist role or is a generalist role, and have 5 people beat me saying, you know what, you don't need HR. Hey, by the way, have you heard of this some food company that's done away with HR already? Do you think I could have had that conversation before in this postcard era? That's the difference that we have. And I step back and say, if that is all about us, what are we doing about it? And I'm going to talk to you about a few stories of people, because eventually, listen, I'm a HR guy, I'm a writer, it's all about stories. So I went back and said, can I find a few people like you and me? And so there's a guy called Gautam Ghosh. He's my, he's a young chap, so it's difficult to call him a guru, but I'll call him my guru. He's the guy who taught me how to tweet and in the last 6 months get me to do what I did. So he said, Ilango, why don't you look up this person called Twilight Fairy? Do you know what she does? At Twilight Fairy? So this is how her introduction reads. Computer science engineer by qualification, telecom software person by profession, and of late, a photography person by obsession. This is the kind of people that you meet. A few years ago, she would not have had a voice. At Twilight Fairy would have been somebody who would have chastened for saying, why don't you focus on your job, because you'll never make money out of it. But I've had so many people who've made money. There's another lady called Nena. You can again find her on it. I don't know these guys personally, so I have no commercial interest in what they do. But in the next one that I'm going to tell you, I have commercial interest. She's a wedding photographer. She's done, hold your breath, her master's in business administration. What is an MBA doing wedding photography? He's a guy who always blocks the view in front when you're watching the Indian wedding, right? That's what, and the way these people got in was all because of social media. They got on Twitter, they got on Facebook, they asked somebody, they said, connected them with some professional photographers, and suddenly, lo and behold, either they're following a passion or they're doing something else. Let me share with you a personal experience on how, and the reason I'm doing this is so that you can walk back at the end of the session and use social media. I know Anand asked you the question, and just none of you put your hand up saying, how many of you are not on any of this? All of you are on either Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Let me ask you this question, and I'd like your answer. How many of you use it regularly? Awesome. There are still some hands down. This is a different group. 9 out of 10 people that I speak with at work have a Facebook account, but have not accessed it in the last 10 days. 7 out of 10 people have not accessed their LinkedIn account. 10 out of 10 is an exaggeration. 15 out of 10 people have lost their Twitter password and never gone back, but their profile is still there, right? So that is the level to which most of us use social media. Let me give you an example of how an individual, and I have no pedigree, I have no backing, was able to break the establishment, the king, the product, the company, and walk away from not being a celebrity and doing something that I wanted to do. 60 days ago, I published a book, You Don't Need a Godfather. Today, it's in the second print run. It's on some 2-3 bestseller lists. But 24 months ago, it wasn't so easy. When I approached the publisher, 36 months ago, when I approached the publisher, they said, oh, have you written a book before? No. Have you done anything? Oh no, sorry, we can't even talk to you. Boom, out. So then I started blogging. I got so frustrated. I said, if you can't publish my book, I will anyway blog. So I started a blog, agastyalango.com, started writing it. And in 3 or 4 months, we had close to, 20,000-25,000 hits. Guess who calls me? Wall Street Journal. says, hey, would you like to talk to us? We'd like you to write something for our online stuff. And then next, you write for it, you get 163 comments. Remember, I have no degree in journalism. I don't even write very well. I just seem to be at the right spot. My blog got a good hit, and then WSJ picked it up. After WSJ, guess who wants me to write for them? Economic Times. Now, I thought that was the end of it, so we put all of this together. We went out and we got a publisher. So the publisher, we went out, we tried. They said, oh, you write for all these guys? Now we're willing to get you to write get you to write the book. Then what happened, once we published the book, the establishment came in again. The establishment said, oh, you're not a celebrity, you're not a known author, we will not stock your book. Because, real estate is very precious, we can't put your books out there, so what do? Facebook, Twitter, Flipkart, these guys come in, and most of the sales of the book today happens through that. And now, suddenly Crossword wants to take 1,000 copies of the book because they see that on Facebook you have 5,000 fans and people are actually talking about it. Do you think I could have done that before? Impossible. The establishment would have killed me. But today, thanks to Facebook, thanks to Twitter, thanks to LinkedIn, and by the way, I wasn't even on any of them till a year ago, I'm able to get to where it is. That's what I'd like you to go out and do it. That's what I think is the power of this social media that each of us can do. And I don't want you guys walking away saying, you know what, this guy's selling the book. It's not about the book, it's about you. Can you do what I did? Can you beat the establishment? Can you get out there? That's what I want you to do. Hopefully you will get this message. And as I close, let me share a very, very light thing that's when I spoke to somebody saying, you know what, I'm going to go speak on social media. They said, you must share this. This is a very 17-year-old girl who sent this to me. And she said, this is how I look at how we use social media. And she said, imagine Ilango, you're having pav bhaji in Bombay. How will you use social media? Any guesses? So you will go to Twitter and you will say, I'm eating vada pav. And you'll do a hash before the vada pav and you'll do a hash before the eating. That will go to Facebook and say, I love eating vada pav along with XYZ, and probably put a picture of that vada pav there. For those of I can see a few, non-Indians in the group. Vada pav is a nice Indian burger with some very, very fattening stuff in between. No different from a cheeseburger. So then you go on LinkedIn and guess what you say? Any guesses what you say on LinkedIn? My skills include eating vada pav. Right? Now I'll come to Google Plus later. Anybody from Google here? Any of you guys work for Google? Terrific. So good. So I'm safe. I'm safe. So let's go to YouTube. On YouTube, what do? This is the video of me eating vada pav. And it's a really badly shaken video that goes out there on your channel. What do you do on Foursquare? Say, I'm checking in at Sambaji Rao's Vada Pav. Are you around? And everybody says, oh, that's the best with Sambaji Vada Pav joint to go in. And what do you do on Google Plus? Oh, I'm a Google employee who eats Vada Pav. Because only Google employees go on Google Plus. Right? So, that is social media for you folks. Hopefully you will go out. Remember that this is about the message. This is about you, and this is the beginning of the individual. This whole thing about tribalism, community, all of that is bullshit. For the first time in history, the individual has a place, and that is thanks to it. And this is an opportunity that we should be using, not chasing celebrities on Twitter, but using this to realize your full potential. With that, let me stop, and we look forward to some questions from you guys. Anand, how do you like taking it?
Do you want to throw
No, I'm getting a few tweets here.
Oh, cool.
So, while we are at that, there was a question. Yes. Is there a mic there?
Hi, my name is Puneet, and actually it was a very nice discussion. My question is towards, you put some statistics up there, said 61% of the employees use social network, and yet 19% only 19% talk about the companies. So it's a big opportunity for the companies to be able to use social media to brand themselves, but it comes with a risk. It comes with concerns that companies have in terms of information leakage, in terms of intellectual property being leaked out or passed out. So how do you control that? How do you make sure that you can control what information is going out? And so that's the question.
Yeah. See, what we need to understand, many of us come from the control freak mentality, the command and control thing. We need to resolve within ourselves, are we in a position to sensibly control? We cannot. We can only regulate them. We can only give some guidelines and policy. So, I can talk about two IT companies. I don't want to name any of them, but things. There was one particular company which brought about a company restructuring internally. And this was very heavily talked about in the social media. Very heavily in a very negative tone. So, HR department of that particular company, the large IT company, the top three, the HR department, they said, is this our employees or is this other employees who are talking about this particular policy in a very negative manner? Because many of them are using proxy IDs. So what they did was, they posted that in the internal intra-network and asked people to comment on that. Similar negative comments, similar negative emotions came in internally too. And then they brought about a social media policy on what you should post, how you should refer to the company, if you are referring to the company, and so on and so forth. So now this particular company that I'm talking about is having a social media usage policy within the company. So all that we need to recognize is, in fact, the statistics that I quoted, 61% of them are proud employees of the company, yet only 19% of them are using it to talk about the company. So we need to recognize this vast potential that is there and allow them with restricted usage. If you look at, I don't know how many of you know about Yammer. Yammer is the internal Facebook or internal social network. There are several IT companies that have developed their own social network where you have ability to network with your colleagues. In today's organization where we are geographically distributed employees, this is the best way to stay connected. So rather than restrict, regulate, have a policy and give guidelines, and people will follow. I'll quote this proverb, if you've got anything that is foolproof, only fools will use it. So if you have some guidelines, people will use it. I had this t-shirt years ago that I was wearing, good boys are basically bad boys who do not get caught. So if somebody does not use it, it does not mean that he is not using it. He or she is using it in a proxy ID. That's all. Thank you.
Hello. So social media seems to be the flavor of the month, right? Everyone's talking about this. Being in this forum, I guess it would be important for us to understand how we can harness the power of social media to help our customers. So in terms of customer relationship management, etc., what a lot of companies are struggling with is how do they use social media to benefit the customers in what they're doing. So whether it is collecting intelligence or helping them with other aspects. A lot of companies actually set up Twitter pages and Facebook pages where customers can come and post their comments, and then they've got people who are dedicated to responding to things like that. But we as providers also have a role in this to play and can actually benefit from this, and was wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, the basic thing is there is enough software that is available to do pattern searching on the responses that come in. So if you are a market research firm or as a provider, take a pick. There's no prizes for you to guess which one is the most easier one. Sending emails to people, sending flyers to people, sending out individuals to go and do a question research or a question survey, or creating a fan page in Twitter, LinkedIn or Facebook and ask your fans to respond. The responses are far more authentic when it comes to the social media. They are far more faster when it comes to social media, and they are far more processable when it comes to social media. In fact, the world is moving. Advertising agencies, there are special advertising agencies that are coming only on the social media, which is taking away this entire cost of advertising across. And added to this, the green revolution that is coming in, which basically is against paper use. Social media is going to basically foster that. I think the quicker you get onto it, the better you are. Every known brand in the world is on the social network. How they are leveraging is where the men are differentiated from the boys.
The only word of caution that I would say on using social media is, you said it right. It almost seems to be like the fashion, the fad. If you make it that, then it's going to fail miserably. I mean, for every success Comcast story, there is a McDonald's Twitter campaign that backfired. Social media has to be part of your strategy, cannot be a strategy. And that's very clear, right? And as long as you follow that, it's another one that you use to reach out to your clients. It just happens to be another sexy medium to reach out. Tomorrow you'll find something else sexy, and then you'll be forever running out. For instance, at Emphasis, we were very clear that unless you get your fundamentals right, there is no point in tweeting about all those 5-6 things that you do. Get your fundamentals out there, get your strategy right. I think we got to keep that in mind. Go ahead, Uma.
Use of social media and being able to listen to the real voices, or probably closer to real voices, by using different methodologies and metrics emanating from social media?
Spot on, Uma. Only you can ask a question like this, which means I have to think. So first, initially most HR folks depended on 2-3 sources for their feedback. One is a great point, when people came and told you what you wanted to hear. The other is the yearly voice of the employee, because by the time the whole data was generated, it is 3 months. And the other one is when the guy quits and goes. Those are the 3. Now what's happened is, we actually have a cell, which is, you want real feedback about your company, go to glasshouse.com, right? You want to know really about what people are talking, go look on the Facebook pages. People are talking about you. But the mistake that we can make, and which is what you do, is the aggrieved and the guys who complain are the ones who are writing the most. So you've got to take that with a pinch of salt, but it is still something that you have there. The second thing that we figured out is doing, in this whole era of instant karma, I changed it with an emphasis from doing this whole voice of the employee to a net promoter score. Because there's no point in having a happy employee. Are you an advocate? Is what he said. 61% of our employees are talking about it. So this whole net promoter score that you use in the product FMCG business is what we started doing. And we realized that when it's just one question that you ask, people answer it quickly. Hey, by the way, you can use SurveyMonkey to do it. And you can put the responses out within 24 hours of somebody doing it. You can actually publish trends as the message comes in. And that's terrific, because that's a terrific way for you to go back. Quick, authentic, and it's easy for you to drive the right behavior that you want. I think we had another question from the young man.
Well, as a bit of a quick question, you touched on the point before about McDonald's, this thing that happened. And same thing happened with Qantas as well, if you know. And they just got out of hand. Qantas was asking what do you like, and people tweeted about what they don't like about Qantas. And that went out of hand. Millions of people tweeted. The question I want to ask is, as you mentioned, the person is empowered by social media, but it's also a sort of double-edged sword, as the person there mentioned. It can do as much damage to your brand as it can do well. So, where do you think social media marketing and online advertising is heading towards, that kind of a damage can be avoided? If it can't be avoided completely, but how can we run campaigns in the sense that the true goodness of the brand comes out, and not the campaign being hijacked by the people who don't really care that much?
Yeah. So you know what, the biggest, and I'll have Anand add in, the biggest issue with social media is the negativeness surfaces much, much faster. And I'll tell you, when I write my blog, I get, initially people will write real nonsense out there and it's scary. How many times can you press the spam button? Can you push it? Then what I realized is rather than me being the policeman, can I just let it be there? And if you have advocates, evangelists who really love what you do, they will start pushing them down. Suddenly on my website, I had people, somebody wrote by saying, you know what, hey, Ilango, if you focused a little more on staffing than you did on the blog, we'll probably do better. I had 3 other guys right there by saying, hey, you know what, I'm so happy you're doing what you did. And initially I would have spammed the first comment because, I'm command control, head of HR, cut the crap guy. I said, no, you know what, let me stay back. This has, the goodness has a way of surfacing if you have, and this is the key, enough brand equity there. Both the examples that you said, they did not have brand equity. This is like putting, I don't want you guys to call me anything else. This is like putting lipstick on a bulldog and presenting saying, look at this pretty face. You can't do anything. You've got to do something else fundamental to change it, or you've got to go market to people who love bulldogs so that they will tweet nice things about it. So that, you can't change this. Anand, would you like to add?
Just a little bit. You don't have a choice when it comes to not being on the social media because people are there anyway. The advantage that is there because of location-based services, you can choose to send your message to only people in a particular location. That option is available. But at the same time, you can receive information from anywhere in the world. So, if you ask the social media experts or the social media marketers, they will come out with a relevant strategy. And the point that Ilango mentioned earlier on, let social media be integral part of your company's business strategy and business philosophy rather than a reactive measure, let it be a proactive measure. When it is a proactive measure, when it is the company's stated business policy, then you've got that going nice and proper. But if you're responding to somebody who has already initiated, that's a viral. That goes all over the place and you can't chase it. That's the only input.
Is Shibangi Das in the room? There you go. She asked me a question on Twitter. This is the only time when I can sit on stage and look at my phone and not worry that people are thinking that I'm doing my text messages. So Shibangi's question, do you want to ask it, Shibangi? This is, Shibangi, terrific question that you asked. By the way, Shibangi's Twitter ID is at Shibangi Das in case you want to follow her. My Twitter ID is at Agastya Says. This is something that I keep constantly. Ilango, you're out there as Ilango. Will you support Emphasis' cause? Will you drive it? Will you support Anna Hazare's cause and start tweeting out there? Those are questions that you have to take based on your personal brand. So here are some things that I've clearly said. I will not promote Twitter on Emphasis on Twitter because I'm there in my personal capacity. I will not promote Emphasis on LinkedIn, in my LinkedIn profile. But I will promote Emphasis on the Emphasis ID in Twitter and the others. Political causes, no. I love Anna Hazare and what he's doing. But you're not going to hear me tweet about it because I'm clearly a professional out there doing whatever. So those are lines that I've clearly drawn, right? In addition, there's another question. The thing that I struggle with is people write about, on Twitter, they write saying, oh, I just gave birth to my daughter. My wife's made this. And my thing is, listen, you've got to be very clear that you're here, your followers are there to listen to you about something. Be clear about the brand that you're doing. And talk to people about what they want to hear, not what you want to say. Terrific question, but I think that's something that many people struggle with on what to do.
There were a few questions.
My name is Jayanti. Yesterday, Shekhar Kapoor talked about this community feeling that the social media has created, and Ilango, you talked about this expression of the individual. Don't you think it's kind of a fashion or a fad, and it's making a lot of narcissistic people around the place?
Jayanti, where are you?
I'm here.
Okay. So, narcissistic people?
Yeah.
Listen, at the end of the day, it is about self. If you read Jacques Jean Rousseau, I think it's a centenary here, he talks about in Social Contract we will do things, even the whole social contract that we have is about how can I maximize benefit for myself, right? But when I maximize benefit, I've got to make sure that I don't upset the contract that I have with the others. So our premise as human beings is based on selfishness, is based on narcissism. Tell me, as much as we say, eventually it's all about us. It's about me, it's about you. And this whole thing is given rise for that. And for us, particularly in India, where an individualistic culture is still not very much there, it is a little difficult. That's my, as you can see, I'm very opinionated about it. But when you're on social media, you've got to have an opinion.
I mean, a few people have asked me questions on Twitter, but I've just responded back to them because two of them are personal questions and company specifics. I've just responded. If there are any public questions, I'll be happy. Yes.
I was just going to offer a comment. You said you don't make any political comments. I think that there actually is a place for political comments on Twitter and in the blogosphere. I'm an American immigration lawyer, and I have been blogging since 2004, and I tweet on the dysfunctional nature of our government's policies. And it actually has the beneficial effect of causing the government to think twice about how they behave, and I'd appreciate your comment.
Thank you very much. So, there's this whole, yesterday I think somebody spoke, social media gives some individuals, and if you've been blogging from 2004, I can imagine the influence that you have. You're probably very influential. We should talk about how I can leverage your influence after this meeting. So you're always looking for an opportunity. You have to make the choice on what you will use the influence for. I'm making a choice that I will use the influence to influence individual success, to drive the cause of HR, to drive the cause of personal effectiveness. That's a choice that I've made, and I don't want to be distracted with politics. Simple as that, because I want to do one thing that I can do well, and that's what I will do, and not get my brand confused. But it is actually personal choice. I've had, like for instance, my wife uses Facebook extensively to drive the cause of people for ethical treatment of animals. But she also eats chicken and all that stuff at home. But so that's her choice. She's saying Peter is my life, and I'm going to drive Peter across, despite the fact that I kill many chickens to eat, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
hopefully nobody will post it on Twitter and she'll see what I said.
I just wanted to make a comment about, how in yesterday's session Shekhar Kapoor and then the government was there, and it's really annoying and scary to see how the Indian government is clamping down on censorship. And also companies, how I tend to be very careful about what kind of photographs I post on Facebook, because it is a part of your life you may not want people to see. Okay, so that's self-censorship. And some people talking about I gave a bath to my daughter. I mean, who the hell cares? Or I'm stuck in traffic. And there's so much of chatter out there that one just blocks yourself out from Twitter and Facebook, and you don't want to read it because it's difficult to shift the good stuff from the chaff. So could you talk a bit about how social media is hurting itself by being so successful?
Yeah. If you want me to take it.
I'll respond to both the questions. See, there is a big temptation and a challenge for us to post our individual thoughts and our individual opinions either on any one of these networks. The only caution that we have to exercise there is make sure that you put a qualifier in that particular statement. Some of us do it on the Twitter page or on the LinkedIn, mainly Twitter page. Opinions expressed here or retweets expressed here are my own and has got nothing to do with the company. Having said that, it also is good for us to segregate our followers or segregate our network. I use my Facebook for just about anybody. I use my LinkedIn for only my professional contacts and my professional followers. And Twitter is for the world at large. As long as we have this kind of a distinction, you're okay to selectively post. What I've also done is, I've linked my Twitter account to both Facebook and LinkedIn, which many people have done. So anything that is on public domain, which is apolitical, I post it on that. But if it is specific related to a profession, then I put it only on LinkedIn. Anything that is to do with my social life, then I put it on Facebook. So this is something that we have to do. The question that you asked, can you just ask that question again? Yeah.
No, I was talking about the success. You see, the corporate America or India is waking up to social media a bit too late. But what I'm saying is, already social media is defeating its very success by the fact that if I want news, I will go to a trusted source like Wall Street Journal or Times of India. I won't read someone's blog, because that is that person's opinion. Because we have limited time how much we can spend on media. So my comment was how social media is hurting itself by the fact that it now has 700 million or 800 million people posting every second what they're doing. And I keep deleting people as contacts. I don't want to hear from this person.
Now the way to do that is make sure that you have a list. You put people into lists and therefore you look at only that. I mean, I have so many followers. I read only those sections that are on a list. And you can do subgroups in Facebook and in LinkedIn. That is manageable. Once your followers exceed 1,000, you will find it a logistical nightmare to listen to or to see what is happening. But if you segregate them into lists, I don't think that's a problem.
Actually the young man's getting antsy there, so we'll close it. The thing I like about social media is, when you have Economic Times, the Times of India or Hindu, you have to read what the editor's got to say there. When you have Twitter, you actually read what you want to read. For instance, I like the piece that Prem Panikar writes, because when Subramaniam Swamy tweets about something, I want to know what the point is. I go look at what Prem Panikar does, then I get my viewpoint that I see. Every day, I have now chosen, like he said, these are the 5 guys that I'd like to hear from tweets or the news bites that I want to hear because I respect them. It gives me a lot more choice than the newspaper that lands out there, right? So good luck. Thank you very much for attending, everybody from both Anand and my behalf. We stand between you and lunch. I look forward to interacting with all of you. So does Anand. Good luck and stay connected on any of the social media platforms.
Thank you.
I shall do the honor, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks for an interesting session.